Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Paper Be Gone studios for the Sports Source today. We have a lot to talk about. Tennessee wraps up the #2 seed in the SEC tournament this week. Finish on a 9-1 run. Tremendous finish to the season. And yet, they gave you a reason yesterday to still kind of grimace a little bit. We'll discuss the best and worst of Tennessee, which you saw in one game yesterday. We'll also talk a little bit of football, but this one is a jam-packed wrap-up of the regular season. Look ahead to tournament time. We got rapid-fire questions. We got a new segment. We're covering everything you possibly be covered today. We got 90 minutes. Let's just jump into it. The first segment of our program today brought to you by Junk Be Gone. March is here, and for many of us, that means spring cleaning. That's certainly the case for me. Every year I have Junk Be Gone drop off a dumpster at my home. If there's something I haven't used or touched in the last year, out it goes. It's simple, it's affordable, it is fantastic. If you are somebody who likes things that are simple and easy and just a couple of days, done, this is what you do. Junk Be Gone. Affordable, fantastic. JunkBeGone.biz to learn more. All right, let's welcome in our panel for the first part of our panel here today. We have VFL Isaiah Victor. Isaiah, thanks for being back with us.
Thank you.
Right there, we have former Vol coach and former D1 basketball player at Milwaukee, Mark Pankratz. Thank you for joining us. And there from 99.1 The Sports Animal, we have Jimmy Himes. Thanks. And thanks to Vince Ferrara, who sits beside him. Not behind him, but beside him.
I can get behind him if you want me to. Thanks, sir.
Appreciate you guys. So let's just wrap this thing up. The Vols opened with a 24-point lead in the first half yesterday. And then they had to hold on for dear life to win 78-74. Great shooting the first half, not so much in the second half. The Vols did finish the regular season undefeated at home, 23-7 overall, and they grabbed the #2 seed in the SEC tournament, as I said a few minutes ago. But about yesterday, I do think we saw the best and worst of this team. We saw why this team could make a Final Four run if they get hot. And I think we also saw where bad day, they could be gone in the first round. Now, you can say that about a lot of teams. This team in particular is an incredibly streaky bunch, as we told you for the last few weeks. An up-and-down game. Let's go ahead and take a look at some numbers here just to show you how extreme this team was in one day. Field goal percentage for Tennessee, 50% in the first half, 41% in the second half. 75% from three in the first half, 50% from three in the second half. 72% from the free throw line. Drops to 58% from the free throw line in the second half. Just cold across the board in that second half. The other big change is points off turnovers. In the first half, Tennessee won that battle 13-4. In the second half, Arkansas won it 15-2. Also, second chance points, 5-2 Tennessee advantage in the first half. Second half, 12-5 Arkansas had the advantage. A lot of second chance points because they let them tear it up on the offensive glass. Mark and Isaiah, what changed from the first half to the second half?
Well, what's glaring on the stat sheet you just showed is the points off turnovers in the second chance points, how they shifted in the second half. And that's probably because of a halftime speech that Arkansas had from their coach. They got a really good coach, a lot of fight in them, and they're a scrappy team. So they create a lot of turnovers. They did that traditionally. That's how they win games, even back to Nolan Richardson's era. So they came out fighting and scrapping, and they get back in the game like good teams do. They are a good team.
More of a ramped up their own effort in the second half kind of thing.
I believe so, yeah. It's hard to play with such a big lead, and at home you're feeling pretty invincible at home. So, but we held on to the game. But yeah, I think they just ramped up their effort, and made us turn the ball over some. And at the end of the day, we still held on to it. So I like the effort from us.
Mark, what happened?
Arkansas was in foul trouble some of the first half, and Note and Williams stepped up and made plays. And I do think there's a difference when you're playing not to lose a game versus when you're playing like it can't get any worse from here. So we can shoot the ball freely, we can attack freely. Defensively, we can take more chances. And Tennessee, we don't have we've got great talent, but we also don't have the individual prowess to not play with incredible urgency. And so I think you saw in the second half our movements, our cuts, were a little bit less aggressive. Our defense was a little bit less aggressive. And Arkansas did just turn it on because at that point they had nothing else to lose.
We're going to talk a little bit later, as a matter of fact, the next segment, about the Texas game, which was kind of the turning point for Tennessee's season. Yesterday was pretty much just the Texas game in reverse, if you think about it. I mean, what you say about Arkansas yesterday, you played terrible, you didn't have anything else to lose, you come out there, you take a few more chances, you turn it loose on the offensive end, you throw a little bit more press on the defense. It's pretty much what Tennessee did at Texas. And like Arkansas yesterday, didn't quite have enough to get over the hump. But that game was extremely similar. It's just you saw the other side of the coin from that Texas game. The Athletic, and look, we've talked about this since that Texas game. We started putting up the numbers that week. And then Mark talked about it the next week on here. And then Jimmy talked about it and brought some numbers. We've talked about this over and over, but the Athletic found some interesting numbers that tell the same story. And you may say, why do you keep saying this? Because it's important. Because it's going to be key to this tournament run. Take a look at these numbers. The Athletic went and used some numbers from a site called hoopmath.com. And entering yesterday, Tennessee was the third best team in the Southeastern Conference in three-point field goal percentage, 34.5%. Okay, great. Tennessee's also the worst in the SEC in two-point field goal percentage. That is, I don't know how many times in league history you've seen a team that is top three from 3 points and worst in the league in 2 points. And here's the thing. Those are not mid-range jumpers they're taking. Only 25% of their two-point shots are mid-range jumpers. Nope. Where they're missing shots are shots at the rim. Only 59% shots at the rim going into yesterday. Gonzaga, for example, an elite team, 70% their shots at the rim. Jimmy, Vince, again, we've said this before. I think it bears repeating going into the tournament. This team, if the threes aren't falling, they don't have anything that you can count on game to game that would be a backup plan. There's really no plan B. They've shown it on occasion, but in terms of, oh, we'll just go to this, we know it's there, I don't think they have anything that you know is there.
No, I don't either. And I remember mentioning some stats to you recently about how if you took Tennessee's 7 losses, how in 5 of them they shot an average of 41% on 2-point shots. They don't have an inside player that they can go to get a basket like they used to with the Grant Williams. I think that impacts them. And some of those misses on twos are drives by Chandler or Ziegler against bigs that are really very difficult shots. But that to me is a big concern with Tennessee, is their inability to count on somebody that can score inside to stop some of these droughts that they've had. And the other part of that, too, to me in the second half against Arkansas took 15 more shots, which tells me they were the rebounding and the turnovers were huge in that second half with Tennessee and Arkansas.
Vince?
Yeah, I think another part of it is Tennessee really didn't have natural two-point shooters. So if they had that, I think you'd see them maybe at times, and we've talked about this with Kennedy Chandler, maybe not try to force it and get all the way to the rim for one of those tough contested shots where he could pull up and make a pretty high percentage mid-range too. Also, the misses at the rim, it's a collective. It's Uros, it's Fulkerson, it's the 2 freshmen. It's been a collective because those guys just are not natural scorers around the rim. And I agree with you, John. There isn't an answer inside that you can rely on, and that's really difficult for them because it does make them susceptible to that one and done. And one last thing, a lot of times these missed layups, I don't have exact numbers on this, it seems like they turn into 2 or 3 points the other way when you do miss them. So that, I think, even adds, and you can't put that on the numbers.
Yeah, not only do you not have an inside game, but also this isn't a team, now they did it some at Texas, but this isn't a team that, oh, well, we'll go to our press defense, and now we'll start generating baskets with regularity off of our pressure defense. They aren't a team that creates those junk baskets, gold, as you call them. So it's not just the inside game. It's just there should be 2 or 3 options. If this isn't working, let's go to this. If this isn't working, let's go to that. This team hasn't shown with any regularity that there's this or that. There's just plan A. I don't know that you can count on plan B or plan C or plan D. Mark, I'll let you wrap
Well,
this
I
up.
will say one, plan B is their defense. I mean, their defense is so stout that leads to teams can't score a bunch, and then it can also lead to some transition points that we saw. But also from a coaching perspective, on the defense, if you don't have an inside presence and that inside presence can't shoot, I mean, you've seen a lot of teams now, Gonzaga, your example, big guys can shoot perimeter jump shots. So now that pulls the big guys away from the basket, freeing up the lane for Chandler to be able to finish. And you've got two freshmen, one of which is really, really undersized, trying to make interior passes. It's just harder. And so I think both of those things, the post players not being back-to-back scorers, back-to-the-basket scorers, and not shooting from the perimeter, makes the interior harder places to score.
Yeah, especially when you play the small guard lineup. So we're playing 3-point guards essentially, and then we're playing James at the 4 a lot of times. And I mean, he's not the best driver, or he doesn't, that's not the best part of his game. I think a lot of those layups should be mid-range jump shots. I think that's just a case where the mid-range jump shot is kind of disappearing a little too much from the game. But you've seen James, he's been shooting it more, especially like down in Georgia. He can make it at a high clip. Kennedy Chandler can, and Ziegler really has to work on his floater and his pull-up shot. So even if you want to get to the basket, you want to at least be a threat to shoot the mid-range shot, so maybe you can fake out a big guy and then get past him to shoot, but he needs to utilize that more.
All right, very good. What was the biggest reason for Tennessee's turnaround after the Texas game? We'll talk about that. And is their point guard play good enough to take them all the way to New Orleans? Yesterday's broadcaster thought so. We'll see if our guys agree. Come on back on the Sports Source.